I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. Could the recent health care mandates signal trouble for President Obama in November? Plus, violence in Nigeria sends Christian children into hiding.
Really, there's a lot of fear and a lot of confusion. You know, the moment you hear any single spark, everybody will start running.
And a migration story that goes back to the beginning.
They were refugees. They were fleeing persecution. So you can look at that in this way, and I will say it in the homily that this is a migrant story.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Well, it has been nearly 3 weeks since Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius approved a controversial contraception mandate, and the decision continues to fuel outrage within the Catholic community. U.S. bishops have said they will not comply with the legislation, which states most private employer health benefits, including those of Catholic hospitals and other religious institutions, will have to cover birth control free of charge as a preventive service for women. Now, to further clarify why the mandate is an affront to the Catholic faith, the U.S. Bishops' Conference offered what it says are 6 things everyone should know about the HHS mandate, noting, among other things, that the mandate forces coverage of sterilization and abortion-inducing drugs and devices and does not exempt Catholic charities, schools, universities, and hospitals. The bishops say the new mandate is also much stricter than existing state mandates, allowing for only the narrowest of exemptions for religious groups. And the ruling could have widespread effects. According to the Catholic Health Association, 13% of the country's nearly 5,000 hospitals are Catholic and employ more than 600,000 people. Now, the HHS ruling, which has been called everything from unconstitutional to a violation of Catholic conscience and religious freedom, has also sparked unexpectedly strong opposition from Catholics across the political spectrum, leaving the campaign trail wide open for GOP candidates opposing the bill to weigh in on why, when it comes to the rights of Catholics, the Obama administration has gone too far. In an address to more than 2,500 supporters in Colorado yesterday, GOP frontrunner Mitt Romney accused President Barack Obama of infringing upon Americans' religious rights, detailing specific examples of Obama's violation of conscience. Meantime, fellow candidate Rick Santorum, one of 2 Catholics in the race, says the issue goes far beyond just the use of contraception.
Whether Catholics use birth control or not is really not the issue. The issue is, can you force a Catholic institution to pay for services that are against the teachings of the church? And clearly the highest freedom in this country is the freedom of conscience. All other freedoms are branches from that trunk. And so when the government says that they can chop down that trunk because they're giving you the money, or they've got the power, the economic power to coerce you to do it, this is a fundamentally different country than what our founders intended.
Well, all that said, we are left asking, will the HHS contraception mandate derail Obama's chances of re-election? Well, to get some answers to this important question and for some insight as to why the concerns of the Catholic leadership were not considered in the mandate's final version, I spoke to Stephen Schneck. He's director of the Institute for Policy Research and Catholic Studies at Catholic University of America. Stephen, it is my understanding that the Obama administration reached out to Bishops' Conference President Archbishop Timothy Dolan and other Catholic leaders in November to seek their input in the process. Now, if that is indeed the case, where was the disconnect ahead of this decision?
Well, that's a really good question, Liz. About the same time that the administration reached out to Catholic leaders in late October and early November, groups on the other side, Planned Parenthood, for example, as well as a number of other women's groups, worked their magic on Capitol Hill and turned out large numbers of legislators on the Hill, and they began pressuring the White House at that particular time. And it was that counter-pressure, frankly, from the other side that seemed to have won the day at the end.
And Stephen, I want to talk a little bit also about a survey by Pew Research Center that shows in 2008, President Obama won 54% of the Catholic vote. Based on everything we've been hearing and what you just said, is President Obama's backing of the HHS policy enough to change that in 2012?
First of all, I have to say I'm an Obama supporter, but yes, I think that there's a great possibility that this could shift the Catholic vote away from Obama. It looks to me like a kind of solidarity is developing in the pews in response to this HHS decision, and we're not going to move all Catholics on this, of course, but enough could move to cost Obama the Catholic vote.
And let's talk a little bit about the other candidates. We have first Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney. He's pledged to overturn the HHS contraception mandate that he says is taking particular aim at Roman Catholics on day one in office. We also have former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. He's a convert to Catholicism, as you know, charging that the mandate is part of a war against Christianity. And now during his campaign in Florida, ahead of the state primary, he pledged to overturn all anti-religious federal policies on his first day in office. Now, if either of these gentlemen were elected, Catholics would surely be winners on day one. Is what these two men are saying enough to turn the tide of Catholic voters in their favor?
It's a difficult thing to say. Obviously, Catholics should be pleased about the direction that Mitt Romney, about the direction that Newt Gingrich, and frankly, about the direction that Rick Santorum are going in regards to the HHS mandate. But there's a lot more to our Catholic faith than just this particular mandate. And in my mind, I think that, to say that there's a war between the administration and the Catholics is it's way too premature for that. This administration has also been very friendly to Catholics, so it's a fairly complicated question.
And you spoke a little bit earlier about your point of view from the pews, is that there's been something of a waking up, like a Catholic solidarity. Now, as you know, Bishop DeMarcio here in Brooklyn, as well as all U.S. bishops, have been extremely outspoken about the HHS mandate. How effective will this be in turning the tide at the polls, in your opinion?
I think that the bishops have been extraordinarily effective in the letters that they've sent out, in the homilies that they've got our parish priests to preach, and so on and so forth. And I think that as this process, and I understand that Bishop Lori's committee, has raised quite a bit of money as this process proceeds over the next coming months, I'm imagining that sense of solidarity in the pews that I mentioned before will become stronger and stronger.
And will we be hearing this this sort of outspokenness kind of get picked up a little bit more as we get closer and closer to November?
I think that it's too soon to say. There are actually, some hints that the Obama administration may be thinking about, trying to find a way to accommodate Catholic concerns. So we'll just have to see. But as things stand, if things don't change, then in fact, I see this continuing all the way to November.
And Stephen, having said that, is there any real way to go back to the drawing board, re-examine the implications of this mandate, and fashion some kind of win-win scenario? Is that too optimistic?
It may be. Liz, it may be too optimistic, but there are things happening down here in Washington that give me just a little bit of hope. There are things stirring on Capitol Hill. Maybe some small, quick piece of legislation could be passed that could address this situation. The administration itself, seems to be, hinting that it might be open. I noticed David Axelrod this morning on Morning Joe show indicated that there might be some opening, maybe for reinterpretation of the mandate, maybe, some accounting tweak. I'm not quite sure what form this is going to take, but I think that all sides should hope, that a win-win situation where Catholic conscience concerns could be accommodated.
All right. Thank you very much, Stephen Schneck, for your time and your thoughts. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure, Liz. Take care now.
Thank you. And opposition to the HHS mandate continues to spread. A group of Orthodox bishops representing North and Central America has added their voice to that of the U.S. bishops. The Orthodox bishops are calling on their faithful to contact their elected representatives to speak out about, quote, this threat to the sanctity of the church's conscience. Stay tuned. There is more currents ahead. When we return, victory for opponents of California's Proposition 8. We'll have that and the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Liz Faublas. Coming up later, the Holy Family's story of survival. But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. A funeral mass was held today in Philadelphia for the late Cardinal Anthony Bevilacqua, who died last week after battling cancer and dementia. Archbishop Charles Chaput was the main celebrant at Philadelphia's Cathedral Basilica of Saints Peter and Paul. Now, the Brooklyn-born Bevilacqua served as Archbishop of Philadelphia for more than 13 years before retiring in 2003. He previously served as the Bishop of Pittsburgh and as an auxiliary bishop for his home diocese of Brooklyn. He was known for his work on behalf of immigrants. He was the founding director of the Brooklyn Diocese Migration Office. In other news, more fallout from a breast cancer charity's contributions to the country's biggest abortion provider. A vice president at Susan G. Komen for the Cure has resigned. According to the Huffington Post, Karen Handel was the driving force behind the move to cut off funding for Planned Parenthood affiliates. Handel told Fox News that it was absurd to suggest she was the only person behind the decision, which the Komen organization later reversed. Now, back in 2010, when she was running for governor of Georgia, Handel made it clear that she was pro-life and did not support the mission of Planned Parenthood. And a setback for supporters of traditional marriage in California. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has overturned the state's Proposition 8, which defines marriage as between a man and a woman. A 3-judge panel ruled 2-1 that a lower court judge was correct in determining that Prop 8 violated the civil rights of people with same-sex attraction. The California Catholic Conference says it is disappointed by today's ruling. The conference says it has always been clear that the case would eventually head to the Supreme Court. It says it expects the High Court to rule in favor of Prop 8. Well, a cardinal in Honduras is warning his country's president about increasing violence there. Cardinal Oscar Andres Rodriguez says Honduras is bleeding painfully. Catholic news agency reports the cardinal's remarks came at an anniversary celebration for the country's patroness. Rodriguez says Honduras is experiencing a multitude of problems, including growing poverty, lack of respect for life, and religious confusion. Well, a conference examining clergy sex abuse got underway in Rome yesterday. Rome Reports has more.
The Pope has written to conference participants on how to deal with cases of sexual abuse and asked them to put first the needs of abuse victims. It's the key point of the conference, Towards Healing and Renewal, organized by the Gregorian University in Rome and actively supported by the Vatican. The audience will include bishops from 110 Episcopal conferences and more than 30 superiors of religious orders. The goal is to teach them how to help victims of abuse and explain what to do with priests and religious who commit these crimes. You have all come to give a clear signal of the will and the duty of the Church to firmly change the way to behave when faced against evil, sin, and the crime of sexual abuse within the Church and in society. The conference was opened by Cardinal William Joseph Leveda, who serves as prefect of the Doctrine of the Faith. He's responsible for responding to these crimes on behalf of the Vatican. He believes that the response of the Church must have many layers. The first response should be to help victims. Also, a safe environment should be created for children, as well as programs aimed at the development of priests and cooperating with civil authorities.
The more than 4,000 cases of sexual abuse of minors reported to the CDF in the past decade have revealed, on the one hand, the inadequacy of an exclusively canonical or canon law response to this tragedy, and on the other, the necessity of a truly multifaceted response.
The Cardinal recalled that abuse is also a civil offense and that the Church must cooperate with the law, saying these cases should be taken to the appropriate authorities.
The head of the Anglican Church will be visiting Rome next month. Anglican Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, will meet with Pope Benedict. The two will pray together at a church in Rome. They last met in October for the World Day of Peace held in Assisi. Meanwhile, the latest numbers show more women than men were ordained priests for the Church of England in 2010. The first time that's happened. According to the UK newspaper The Telegraph, 290 women were ordained compared to 273 men. The news comes less than 20 years since the Church of England began ordaining women. And the Vatican's newspaper is paying tribute to Queen Elizabeth for her 60 years of reign. In an editorial, the paper says Monday was a day of both sad reflection and celebration, commemorating the death of King George VI and the coronation of Queen Elizabeth. The paper says 2012 will be an opportunity to celebrate a remarkable queen and a remarkable institution, the British monarchy. Stay tuned, there's more currents ahead. Coming up, school is out in Nigeria, but for all the wrong reasons. Welcome back. It's a time of uncertainty and fear for Christians in Nigeria. An Islamist group known as Boko Haram issued an ultimatum ordering Christians out of northern Nigeria. The group has also claimed responsibility for attacks in the region that have killed hundreds of people. Now, the violence also has many thinking twice about even stepping outside. CNN's Nima Elbagar takes a closer look.
At the morning church service here in Kano, they offer up the usual prayer for forgiveness. But today, they pray also for protection. In the aftermath of the horrific Islamic militant attacks on the northern Nigerian city, nowhere feels safe anymore, least of all the city's churches. At the nearby church school, Principal Boside Yusuf goes through her usual morning routine of unlocking the school's classrooms. But today, the classrooms will sit empty. Although it's already mid-morning, not a single one of her school's 800 pupils has arrived. In the days since the Boko Haram attack on Kano, classrooms like this one across the state have been emptying of children. Parents unwilling and unable to let their terrified children out of their sight. But hardest hit have been the church schools, where parents say they have even less reason to believe that the government can keep their children safe.
There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear and a lot of confusion. You know, the moment you hear any single spark, everybody will start running. I was born and bred in Kano. I went to my primary, secondary, higher institutions in Kano, and I'm working in Kano. I have friends that are Muslims, and we've been saying in peace. But with the recent situation, you know, I said it is causing a lot of distrust among us, because we can no more believe that what this person is saying is the truth. Everybody is afraid.
In a room off one of the churchyards, Paulina Yusuf is holding a wake for her two sons killed in the militant attacks. Like many Kano Christians, her hometown no longer feels like a safe place.
The time the condo run, I don't see my children. Condo shouts, I don't see any one of them. I don't know for where my mind is up to now. I want them carry me go there, go see the place them buried my children. So far I don't see the small one. Now the big one, I don't see. I'm not in the thing called they pay me well, because I don't see that body for that big one. So no, maybe I'll go stay Kano. Maybe I'm not going to stay for Kano. Because I don't work with police. That day I don't work with them. If I decide, maybe I'm not going to see that for Kano.
With the state police themselves struggling to hold the peace in the face of an almost daily onslaught by militants, attacks are spreading across Nigeria's Muslim-majority north, and many Christians here feel few safe places remain.
Even if we run, where are we going to run? We are born here, and so we live here, we grow here, we school here, so where are we going to live to? We have no place to go. Yes, whatever will happen, we are here. Let it happen with us.
And that report from CNN's Nima Elbagar. Stay tuned, there's more currents ahead. When we return, Escape to Egypt, commemorating the journey of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
Holy Family were the first immigrants. And as immigrants, they experience what we experience in America.
Well, at a time when the rights of immigrants have the potential to impact this year's presidential elections, our final story looks at the journey of one migrant family, the Holy Family. Each year, the Brooklyn Diocese Igbo African Apostolate commemorates the flight of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph into Egypt. Bishop Nicholas DeMarcio was the main celebrant for a special mass at St. James Cathedral in downtown Brooklyn.
Today we're celebrating the Nigerian feast, the flight into Egypt. Joseph was warned in a dream that King Herod was looking for the life of the infant. Herod sent the soldiers to Bethlehem, and all the infants 2 years of age and under were killed, all the male. So Joseph took Mary and Jesus and went to Egypt.
Truly, this feast is both Christian and represents the African culture. It represents the African culture because we recognize that Jesus went to Africa.
This is for everybody, but the Nigerian community has this as a special devotion. As you will see later, they have the infant dressed in tribal garb and concentrating on that part of Jesus' life, that infancy, that event that was so critical to the saving the life of Jesus.
This wonderful celebration that is your own as a Nigerian people is a wonderful reminder of the migration experience.
Basically, it was a refugee situation. If today it were to happen, we would say they were refugees. They were fleeing persecution. So you can look at that in this way, and I will say it in the homily either. This is a migrant story, and it's especially dear to people who are migrants. They know what migration means. Every migrant, even if they're not fleeing persecution, has a change to undergo. It's a flight, it's an exodus.
The Holy Family were the first immigrants. And as immigrants, they experience what we experience in America.
We celebrate it, we dress like the Africans. Actually, I'm from Haiti. And of course, you know, my descendants are from Africa.
He is wearing the traditional, African traditional wear. And this is the chief, this thing we put on for a king.
Today, we make the intention of this Mass to pray for your beloved country, that peace will come there, that there will be true religious freedom and brotherhood between Christians and Muslims.
We pray that there will be peace in that land, that Christians are endangered. They are not accepted as part of society. They're marginalized. And my prayer would be that there would be peace there, and that there will be a kind of a pluralistic society that will allow for Christians and Muslims to live in peace.
And that is all for this edition of Currents. Coming up tomorrow, a new effort to help migrant families closer to home. I'll sit down with another of Brooklyn's bishops to discuss that. Until then, be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. We are also on Facebook and Twitter. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for watching and have a great night.